Welcome to the American Grown Podcast, hosted by Austin Sullivan. The American Grown Podcast will focus on people from different walks of life and their journey to where they are now. Now, turn up your volume and settle in for a great episode.
Hi, I'm Austin Sullivan. This is the American Grown Podcast, recorded inside the Colortech Creative Solutions studios. Today, we have Jessica Maloy, owner of Palmyra Greenhouse and Powerlifting World Record Holder. Jessica, welcome to episode 29 of the American Grown Podcast.
Thanks. Hi.
Welcome, Jessica. I found out about you and your flower truck, Rosie, the red truck, from my wife and mother-in-law. They used to play cards with you and your mom. I think they still do.
Correct. Yeah. I knew Courtney when she was in Debbie's belly. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
We've known them for a very long time. Yep.
Awesome. I love the outfit. I wanted to mention that. And your ring, which we'll have pictures up on social media, but you're definitely like all about flowers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're going to get into that. So let's get some background. Where'd you grow up and, high school and stuff like that?
So I was born in Ohio, about 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. And my mom and dad divorced when I was young, and she moved out here when I was 10. So I was in fourth grade. So we moved to Hershey, and I went to Hershey from fourth till I graduated. And that's where I met my husband. So my husband and I are high school sweethearts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started dating him when I was 15. He was 16. So, yeah.
The move from Ohio was because of family or because of work? Do you remember? I mean, I guess you're really young.
It was for my mom's. She got a job. Her sister's husband ended up getting a job out here and then could hire her. So, yeah, we moved out here without really knowing anybody except my aunt and uncle and my, at that point, 2 cousins.
Gotcha. The reason I ask is it seems like a lot of people, especially in Lebanon County, which I don't know why, it gets a bad rap. Everybody wants to leave Lebanon County or leave Pennsylvania. So I just found it interesting. But I think it's a beautiful state and there's a lot of opportunity here. It's just you have to put the work in and, get after it.
Yeah, I really like living in this area. We're close to everything within, a couple hour drive, even the beach. We didn't go to the beach when I lived in Ohio. It was, a really long drive. And now you can get there in 3 hours,
right.
Yeah.
Philly, Pittsburgh,
exactly.
New York. I mean,
DC,
all the big cities. DC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Heck yeah. When you moved, what was that like, the move here to Pennsylvania? Like in school, were you into sports, music, art? What was your thing?
I hated when we moved here. I was very mad at my mom. I'm an only child and she's a single mom. So I grew up with cousins, a large Italian family. And I lived 5 doors down from my cousin who is a month younger than me. And so we were best friends. We were like sisters. Her parents disciplined me. My mom disciplined her. I had like double parents. So when we moved, I just felt alone. Like she had taken me away from everybody. My dad, my cousins, all my aunts and uncles, but I was young and didn't know. And now I look back and I think that was probably obviously the best thing she could have ever done.
Yeah.
And how strong she had to be to make that decision, to take me out of it. It's just not the greatest area as far as jobs and things like that. It's a lot of drugs and alcohol and, not a whole lot of stuff going on. I look at her now and I think, wow, she was only 30 and she made that decision to move us here. And she only had her sister. So yeah, I'm obviously glad. But at the time it was very, very hard. And no, I never did any kind of sports. Again, she was a single mom. We didn't have the money or the time. She would work and come home and make dinner and that was our day. So yeah, once I got into high school though and had friends that drove and stuff, I did a whole lot more than when I was younger. But yeah, my husband actually was the first to take me, horseback riding and skiing and to my first circus. He's the one that taught me how to drive. And, he did a lot of...
What's his name?
His name's Patrick.
Oh, shout out to Patrick.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And is he from the area? Is he Pennsylvania?
Yes. He grew up, born in the same house that he moved out of when we got married. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So, you're so right for your mom to make such a big move, but obviously there was reason and she felt it was necessary. And then to have that support system or support circle around her with her sister,
right.
You had mentioned, I'm sure that definitely helped. So you met your husband in high school and high school sweethearts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And was he into sports or anything like that? Do you remember?
Not when I met him. I know, just he played soccer and stuff at a younger age, but
yeah.
No, and not really into any extracurricular, no music, no band, nothing like that. So, no, I was boring.
All right. No, I mean, hey, everyone's got different stories.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm trying to hint about the sports is then how did you, and maybe we're jumping ahead, maybe there's more you can fill me in on. How'd you get into powerlifting and being a world record holder? I mean, that's a jump from, no, I'm not really doing any sports or anything, but you're, a world record holder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When my son was younger, I needed exercise. I needed, to get away. I was a stay-at-home mom, which is hard work. So I started running. This is kind of going off the subject, but anyway, I started running. Couldn't really run, all but half a mile.
I hate running. I hate
running. But I set myself a goal and I kept growing. Anyway, I decided to sign up for a marathon. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
You did a marathon?
I did a marathon. And afterwards, I said, I am never running again.
Yeah.
So
put that to bed.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
I was like, but I need to do something, or, I can't get lazy. So there was a CrossFit gym down the street from me. So I was like, well, let me just try that. And I went there, not knowing anybody, not knowing much about CrossFit except like what's on TV, the ropes and,
they can be pretty intense.
flipping tires and stuff like that. I was like, that's cool. Yeah.
Girls, yeah.
So I went there. And I loved it. And I fit in right away. The runners all have, those skinny legs and, they wear their short shorts. And that is not how I'm built. Mm-hmm. And so when I went there, I was like, these girls, they kind of look like me. The bigger thighs, the, broader shoulders. Yeah. So I felt comfortable and started with CrossFit. And then, so actually, February was just 10 years that I started that. So it was in 2013. And so... I don't know, about 2 years into it, I started realizing that I was strong. I mean, I was 38 at the time, and I had never known that I was strong, which, I mean, I always figured that these thighs were good for something. Yeah. It was, so like at the time we would put like our weights and our workouts on the board and, you can compare, and I could out squat some of the guys. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm an old woman and here I am, So actually the owner of the gym at the time said, did you ever think about powerlifting? And I was like, oh, maybe. What does that mean?
What is that? Yeah. What is powerlifting? Right.
So it's just 3 movements. It's a back squat, bench press, and deadlift. And those were all 3 things that I was pretty good at, at the gym. So he said, well, why don't we try to train and just do, real casual competition type of thing. Now with powerlifting, there's lots of different federations. And some of the federations allow PEDs, performance enhancement drugs. Some of them, just like strongman. Some of them you're allowed to do.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. But I didn't want to do any of those.
Yeah, it doesn't seem fair in my opinion. I don't know. Yeah.
So I would only compete in ones that did drug testing.
Okay.
And
wow.
so
So this is legit. I mean, drug testing, everything.
Right.
And I know, just real quick, 38's not old, and I don't think you're old now. I mean, like I said, 10 years, because being at 32 this October, like I think if you hit 70, then you're getting a little old.
Right.
So can we agree on that?
I view it way differently now that I'm going to be 50 in a few years.
When you said 38's old, back then or whatever, this old lady at the gym, I'm like, whoa, don't say that. Yeah. But anyway, so continue. So they have drug testing. Those are the only competitions you would enter. So it's this legit thing. It's very serious, you know. And you're lifting heavy weight.
Correct.
So people can get hurt and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's interesting, again, because the different federations allow different things. Some people, I don't know if you know anything about powerlifting, but there's like squat suits and there's deadlifting suits, and those help you to get, higher numbers. But I'm not going to not have a suit and compete against someone who does, because I would, totally not be able to compete like that.
And so what does the suit do? I've seen them, I think, but what edge does it give?
They're really rigid. And so, when you put the weight on your back and you go down, you actually go down really, really slow. And then they tell you when to pop up. And then it's so much easier to get up out of that hole.
Oh, okay. So it kind of like compresses and helps.
Yes.
Okay.
And the one federation I went into didn't even allow knee sleeves. So it was like basically you could only wear a belt. So there was no other help. Some of them, like in a deadlift suit, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but sometimes people can't even bend over. Like look, I'm doing it like you can see me. But you're up, and then you have to like literally be anyway. And
So
so
you
it's much easier than to pull yourself to a standing position.
I see. So it's like tight, like you said, rigid. It's made to maybe like help you explode up. It sounds like.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same with the bench. I mean, they have these bench suits where these people have to get put into. It's so funny to watch.
Wow.
And they literally are like this walking around.
Yeah, because their arms.
Yeah,
Can't move
because
or
they
anything.
can't move.
Yeah.
So then when you pick it up, and obviously the weight helps bring it down to you.
Right.
But then it helps then explode up.
you
So
get- okay.
I've never done those. The suits are expensive, and I didn't feel like,
Yeah.
So I trained at the CrossFit gym that I worked at, or, was going to. My husband ended up joining me a year later.
Oh, nice.
So he also does CrossFit with me.
Do you want to shout out the name of the gym?
Yeah, CrossFit Hershey.
CrossFit Hershey. Okay.
It's not in Hershey. It's actually it's an Anvil address, but it's in Palmyra, and it's called CrossFit Hershey.
Is it by? Yeah, that'll throw you for a loop.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it by In the Net? Isn't there?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can
it's
picture it
back over there.
Yeah.
The community is awesome, and so once I started competing a couple of times and realized that this was something that I was getting better at and wanted to maybe go further. So powerlifting isn't in the Olympics like weightlifting is. So you've probably seen like the snatch and the clean and jerk. That's called weightlifting. And that's in the Olympics. But powerlifting is not. The highest you can get in powerlifting is the Arnold Sports Classic, which is actually going on right now. It's still Sunday. Yeah, it's going on right now. It's in Columbus. It's every year. And it's like the strong men go there, and obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger's there.
Yeah.
And they have, all kinds of stuff there. And so that's like the highest you can get within powerlifting. So I set my goal to go there and compete. So
how, I guess, I don't know, it's probably a long journey, but what were the steps? How did you, because I did a little research, and like we talked before the recording, I had looked up IPA because I only knew that as a beer term. I didn't know that stood for the International Powerlifting Association.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what's IPA and how does this all work? I know there's like York Barbell down in York, PA off of Route 83. And how was that journey?
I got to the Arnold. I was 42. Gosh, it all runs together. Anyway, I was in my 40s. I was the oldest woman that was competing in powerlifting there at the Arnold. I mean, I think it was XPC was the powerlifting association that went to the Arnold that I competed with. The IPA doesn't go to the Arnold. Again, because there's so many federations, there's so many different branches to get to and go through and all of that stuff. It was an interesting journey. I had to stop CrossFitting because it's very difficult to grow your fitness and also grow your strength. I learned a lot about your body and what it can do so like the more cardio you do, it can basically burn your muscles away, and you won't necessarily be as strong. There's like this fast twitch muscles, and then there's slow twitch muscles, and it's all very confusing. And thank God I had a good coach.
So there's a science behind it. It's not just
definitely.
like go bench 300 pounds or
Exactly.
go squat like 400. There's some science and I'm sure some eating habits and different things like that.
Yes. And that is why I stopped because it's really hard. It's hard on your body, especially being, close to 40 and then in my 40s. It was a lot of having to get massages and make sure that you get enough rest and enough water. But then also I had to cut weight every time I went because there's weight classes. And so, someone who's, super heavyweight isn't going to compete against someone who only weighs 150
I guess
pounds.
that makes sense.
Because mass moves mass.
Yeah.
Heavier people tend to be stronger. I wanted to compete at a certain weight, but I trained a little heavier than my competing weight. And so I would always have to water cut 3 days beforehand, and that was terrible. And I was so mean, and no one wanted to be around me. So
Well, when you say water cut, like I picture in high school, I wasn't a wrestler, but you had to wear like a black trash bag, and the guys would be running, and the girls would be running and sweating and things like that. Is that kind of what water?
Kind of. The science that people find out about things. So you basically can flush your body with a ton of water and don't eat anything. So I would drink about 2 gallons of water for 2 days, and you then would stop drinking, but your body's still flushed.
Yeah.
So that would dehydrate you, like quote unquote naturally.
Right.
But it wasn't natural. It was terrible for you to do, and it was
sounds
terrible
awful
for your body.
Yeah.
And you couldn't, not eating and then being, first of all, you pee like every half hour, and that's a pain. But then afterwards, you're so thirsty and you can't drink until you have a weigh in. And anyway, so I did that with almost every competition, and that just got really
brutal.
old. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would cut within those 3 days before. I would cut probably a good 7 to 8 pounds that way. But as soon as you drink or eat something, you can, it would come back on. It wasn't a natural, it wasn't like I was losing fat. I was dehydrating myself.
Wow, just to get that weight.
Just to get the weight, yeah.
So going into the Arnold, like what weight class, and then once you're there, is it a team? Like, did you bring people with you? Was your husband there? Is he competing, or is it just you?
It was just me. No one else from my gym was doing powerlifting. I actually didn't have anyone else. Like, my mom didn't go. My coach didn't go. I mean, to get to Columbus is, 8 hours or whatever?
Yeah.
In March. Like, who wants to be in Columbus in
Right,
March?
right.
So it was an interesting experience. I mean, I met some great people, and I'm still friends with a lot of the people. And then I ended up, it's funny because I went into thinking, I don't care if I win. I just want to hit a certain total,
Right.
like that to me is winning, beating my previous numbers and things like that. Like, I don't care if I win. I ended up winning, but not hitting the numbers I wanted to hit. So it was kind of like a mind game.
Yeah.
Because I was like, yay for winning, but like I didn't really do what I wanted to do,
Right.
But nonetheless, I have a trophy that says that I competed
awesome.
at the Arnold and I won first class, or first place in my weight class. So, and being the oldest woman that was, lifting was pretty cool too. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And not a lot of people can say that,
Right. And so like the world records and the state records that I hold, it sounds like a lot, but they're within different federations and also different age classes. So I could, when you're between 35 and 40, you're considered a submaster. So I set some world records and some of them as a submaster. And then when I hit 40 to 45, you're considered a master. So I have some. So at the time I was competing, I haven't looked lately if someone beat my world records, but I had 26 Pennsylvania state records, and then I had 12 world records.
Wow.
And over different federations,
Yeah.
like 3 different federations.
That's so cool. Because it's not something you hear about all the time.
Right.
And right here in, little old Lebanon County.
Yeah. And I love being a strong female. And, a lot of people are like, oh, females shouldn't lift because they're going to get bulky or they're going to get ripped or they're going to look like a man. It is really, really hard for a woman to get ripped and look like a man. As much as I would love to have definition in my legs or my arms, I'm super strong and I'm probably stronger than some people who are ripped, but it does take a lot. It's a lot of dedication, a lot of eating correctly to look like that versus, so, I mean, whatever floats your boat, but for people to say that you're going to look like a man because you lift heavy isn't true. I've had pull over and help someone push their car out of the way, by myself as a woman because I can, you know what I mean? And I don't need someone else to help me. So
I love it. And it's a shame that stigma's out there that it's like, oh, if you lift and you're a woman, you're going to be a guy or you're going to grow a beard and it's like, where's that even coming from? Like, we're all built differently and everyone's different.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, my husband, because, it's funny because at the Arnold, I was sitting there waiting to get my award and I texted my coach and I said, I'm done powerlifting. I'm back to CrossFit.
You're like, that's it.
That's it. It was kind of like running the marathon. Like I've been there, done that. Let's go back.
Right,
Yeah.
You did it. Yeah.
Because the community of the CrossFit gym, I missed working out with people. And I also could really tell that my fitness was going down, like walking upstairs was a little harder for me as far as, breathing heavier than it was when I was more fit as opposed to being strong. They're two totally different things. And so I'm still doing CrossFit now and my husband does do it with me, like I said. But it's so funny because he and I are completely different on what we're good at the gym. Like I am stronger than my husband, but he can do pull-ups and burpees and all like the body. I know all the body weight movements he is crazy good at. And I can't do a pull-up because I'm fat. You know what I mean? So
pull-ups are hard.
Pull-ups
you're
are really
more
hard.
muscle. You're more strong.
I have more to pull up.
There you go. Exactly right. So that's. I mean, you're a badass. You can push a car.
Right.
You can push a freaking car. Oh man. Throughout your life and so far, and throughout all the lifting and your experiences, do you have any mentors? Anyone that you want to shout out? Anyone you want to mention that's helped you along your way? Yes
and no. I mean, not a mentor as far as like in the field, but like obviously my mom. When you're a kid, you don't appreciate what your parents do or anything. You don't even understand life as a kid. Yeah. But like I said, for her to do what she did at such a young age by herself with the daughter. I just don't know if I could be that strong. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm physically strong, but I don't know mentally. she had it tough, she had it tough growing up. And then her and my dad had a very rocky relationship. I think I told you my dad was a drug addict. He has passed away, and he was abusive. And so she had a lot to deal with as far as that goes, and trying to, there were times that we didn't have electricity because he used the money for drugs. And
oh my God.
it was tough, and she knew that it needed to change, so she got out of that situation. But it couldn't have been easy. And then I was such a bitch to her when we moved, because I was miserable.
Happy. Right.
Yeah. And I thought she did it to be mean and,
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was the furthest thing from that.
Exactly.
And it is a shame, and it's tough because addiction changes people.
Yeah.
Completely. But for your mom to say, look, this is what we're doing. It's going to better the lives of my daughter and her, that is a huge step.
Yeah.
That's huge. And, I think if you had to do it, I think you could do it, because I think you're very mentally, not only strong, but I think you are mentally tough, just from the little I know you.
I would like to think so, but I think about if I ever lost my husband, he's my rock, so he'd be the other mentor or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
He, I feel like, has definitely made me a better person. I'm not a very patient person, and we are completely opposites. Put it that
Yin
way.
and yang.
I will talk to anybody, anywhere about anything. He would rather not. He would rather sit and observe and things like that. And at home, obviously, I'm the talker, and I'm more of the aggressive, personality, where he's
reserved.
Definitely
he's a
not.
More reserved. Yeah.
But we complement each other, and and I think I've taught him some things, and he's definitely taught me some things, and I really believe I'm a better person for him being in my life. So,
perfect. And again, shout out to Patrick.
Yeah, shout out to Patrick.
Cool. So, your powerlifting, you said, all right, it's time for a change. You're world record holder. You've done it all. So then, how did Palmyra Greenhouse and Rosie, which there's going to be pictures because I saw the trucks out front here at the shop, how did that come about?
It's interesting because it came about by accident. This was never meant to be a business. So during COVID quarantine, it was May, Mother's Day weekend, and no one could do anything. We couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
Everything was closed. And so I was like, well, I'm going to plant sunflower seeds. And it was the first time I've ever, I did yard work. I pulled weeds, I mowed the lawn, stuff like that. But as far as gardening, didn't really do that. But I spent hours out back planting all these sunflower seeds on Mother's Day. And the next day I went out to water them, and the squirrels had dug them all up. There were holes everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I jokingly said, well, I'm going to need somewhere to germinate seeds. I didn't even know what germinating seeds was. But again, we were bored, and I was like, well, what do you do? So I just went on, on Pinterest, love Pinterest. And so I went on, and there are, ways to make these greenhouses in your backyard. So I jokingly kind of sent them to my husband, and I was like, hey, look how cute this would look really great in our backyard. And they're basically made out of old wooden windows from barns. And luckily his family owns a farm out in Campbelltown, and they had gotten new windows, and they had all their old windows in
perfect
there. So 3 days later he comes home with a truck full of windows.
Wow.
So I said that to him on a Tuesday.
Okay.
And then on Friday he came home with a truck full of windows, and by Saturday we were at Lowe's buying up all the lumber to make this greenhouse. So that was our little spring project. Again, because mostly I think because we were bored. There was nothing else going on. We couldn't do anything, and it was cute. It was the idea about it. And I remember. So I'm also really huge into Christmas, insane decorating,
like Chevy Chase Christmas.
And we have 30,000 lights outside. Yeah, it's crazy. So as we're building this in May into June, I just keep thinking this is gonna look so cute decorated for Christmas. It wasn't even Christmas season, but I was preparing.
You're envisioning it,
I was like, this is what we're gonna do here.
Yeah.
So obviously I was posting a lot on Facebook, all of the cute pictures and all the updates on my greenhouse. And I thought, my friends are going to hate me. So I'm going to make my own page for the greenhouse.
Because their feeds are going to be full of what you're doing with the greenhouse.
Yeah. And I thought, if they want to see what I'm doing, they can follow my page.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just haphazardly called it Palmyra Greenhouse. We're in Palmyra. It was a greenhouse.
Makes sense.
That was it. You know what I mean? And so looking back, if I would have turned this into a business, it would never have been called Palmyra Greenhouse.
No?
Just to let you know. No.
Yeah.
But it just kind of all happened. So so it was done in May and June. Inside, all these cute little decorations that I, again, bored at work, so I'm on Amazon shopping online.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Come like November, I'm like, I'm going to start decorating for Christmas, and obviously posting a lot on my Facebook page. And someone said to me, can I take family photos at your greenhouse for picture, for Christmas? And I was like, yeah, might as well have someone else enjoy my, hard work and stuff.
They appreciate it. Right?
Yeah. Well, that just took off. So we had hundreds of people through our backyard.
I was going to say, this is in your backyard, right?
Yes, it's in our backyard. And I live in town, Palmyra. So it's not like I live on acreage. Like I literally live in
people are just parking
downtown.
along the streets and everything.
Yeah. But because it was during COVID and because, people needed to stay 6 feet apart, all that stuff. So I ended up having schedule, so people would contact me and be like, well, hey, you can come Saturday at 2:15. You're here for 15 minutes. Then we turned it into a fundraiser. So then we started collecting like $20 for 15 minutes. And then we ended up donating the money to the local school district.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we ended up donating over $2,000 to families. We ended up buying gift cards to Weiss for people who needed, holiday food. Yeah. But like we had photographers coming and doing like their mini sessions. So they would rent out like 4 hours at a time. And then they had people coming in and out and things like that. Again, though, I thought, well, that's it. I'm done. Like this Christmas is over. And then two of the photographers were like, well, when are you going to decorate for Easter? I'd love to come back. And I'm like, I don't decorate for Easter.
Yeah.
Like, who decorates for Easter?
You're just big into Christmas. Right. You decorate for Easter. Yeah. Right.
So I said to my husband, well, if people are interested and they're willing to pay me, like maybe we have something here.
Yeah, because it's your time to set it up and decorate it properly. And
exactly.
Everything. Yeah.
So I was like, but if we're going to do it, I want to turn it into a business so that I don't feel bad taking money and not have to tell the government. Yeah. And then also I wanted to get insurance because I didn't want someone to walk through the yard and trip and then sue me.
Because in your backyard, yeah.
Exactly. So we went the legit route, and I did all the things I was supposed to do. And I contacted my borough. I contacted the state. I got a state income tax number. Federally, I needed to do stuff. And it was like a lot. And when I contacted the borough, I said, do I need like a permit? And she's like, no, you just have to fill out this form. I'll email it to you.
Okay.
And so I did. And then I kept it on my way. I booked it for Easter. We had the Easter Bunny coming. I did like a fundraiser for a local search and rescue unit. And then the borough called and she was like, yeah, this is denied. And I said, I thought I didn't need a permit. And she's like, well, you don't need a permit, but you do need permission. And I was like, what? Isn't that kind of the same thing? So, I couldn't have a business in the greenhouse. Okay. The rules in the borough was you can't have a business in an outside structure. If I had an attached garage and wanted to fix cars, that would be fine. But if it was a detached garage, you couldn't fix cars.
Wow.
And so because the greenhouse was not attached to my home, I couldn't have a business.
That sounds a little...
What I've learned with that is the whole ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Because no one complained. None of my neighbors, no one complained about me. So I don't know if the borough would have ever really found out.
Because not like you're making noise. You're not playing loud music. It's not partying.
Right. And obviously, the community loved it. We had so many people in Palmyra, come and take pictures. And then I had someone send me a thing and she sent me a picture of this family, and they were all in their PJs standing in front of the greenhouse. And she said, I just wanted to let you know this is the last family photo that this family had. She said, she's my best friend, and she passed away 3 weeks after this photo. Oh, my God. Yeah. And I was like, oh, my gosh.
Wow.
That's it. My greenhouse is the last time they have a family photo together, And I was like...
They'll have that forever.
And so, not that I didn't do anything, but it's just the idea that, that's going to be remembered, and people... It might be important to some people. We had people bring their dogs, and we had one couple bring their cat in a crate, and then they actually took the cat out and got pictures of the cat in there for Christmas.
Oh, that's great.
I know. So anyway, but the borough said no. I was very upset.
I believe
because,
it's your backyard, and
it's like mine. Who cares?
Right.
I'm not hurting anybody. We have the parking, and because I'm on an alley, and I'm like,
okay.
Anyway.
So they say no. So now like, what? So what's the next step then? I mean,
So then I was basically selling. So I decided to do cut flowers and what I do have as a yard, and I was like, well, I have the greenhouse. We'll kind of turn it into the whole flower thing. And so I started selling them to like the people who followed me on Facebook on my group. And, so I would be like, hey, I have sunflowers and gladiolas. Does anyone want me to make you a bouquet? And they'd be like, yeah. And then I would deliver them. And then that kind of started it with the flower part of it. But again, no one could come and pick them up. I had to deliver them.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I didn't want to just do like craft shows or something. So that's when I was on Instagram and I saw these people have flower trucks. And I was like, this is perfect. Because it's a way of getting out there, of spreading, the joy of the flowers that people love. But also, especially around Hershey, people love the antique cars.
Oh, right.
It's really
huge.
popular.
It's very popular in Hershey area.
And my husband actually grew up in the antique car world. His parents had an antique 64.5 Mustang and then a 56 Thunderbird. So they were definitely Ford people.
Yeah.
So when I brought this up to my husband, he was like, So then he kind of started looking. We both were looking and
because now he's getting really interested.
It was kind of like a twinkle. Like, let's see if,
sparked his interest.
Yeah, especially when I said antique.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I would send him pictures of like a Studebaker or like a Chevy. And he was like, if we're going to do this, it has to be a Ford. I was like,
I figured, yep.
And then I would send him like a Ford, a 60 something or whatever. And he was like, it has to be between a 53 and a 56. I was like, since
wow.
when are you
He's got
so
it narrowed
specific?
down. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
He really knew what he wanted, So we ended up finding the red truck on Facebook Marketplace of all places.
Facebook Marketplace. What?
It was a 53 and it's a Ford F100. So it was the last year before they started making 150s.
Okay.
And yeah.
Facebook Marketplace. Was it local? Where'd you have to go?
It was in New York. But it's interesting because my son goes up to college in New York. So it was like an hour away from him. So we kind of went, let's look at the truck and go visit, my son. So my husband did that. And it worked out. He wasn't asking, crazy amount of money for it. And it wasn't dry. We didn't really do anything to it. Let's put it that way.
That's what I was going to ask. Was it a little beat up? Was it rusty or it was pretty good?
It does need a new paint job, but because we're not showing it, it doesn't need to be show quality. And people are around it all the time. So we're not worried so much about the paint right now.
Makes sense.
And honestly, you have to really look close to know that it needs, paint job.
So the paint that's on it now is what you bought it at?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
I wanted a blue truck. I like that blue look because if you see like my Palmyra greenhouse logo, it's the blue door because I have a
I saw
blue
that.
door.
I did, yeah.
And so I thought, well, that would look cute with the blue truck, with the blue door, and stick with the whole aqua blue look thing.
But that red pops.
Yeah.
It looks really good. I thought that was painted, and I just saw it through the doors, and we'll get a picture of it then. But I'm like, oh, it looks repainted. It looks really nice. But that's how it came.
And it's an original. It's the original Ford red color, which is kind of looks like a tomato red. It's like a little bit more orangey, reddy. But my husband is very particular about wheels and tires, which is interesting because that's the last thing I look at on a car. So the first thing we did was get new tires. They had white wall tires on it, but he thought that the white on the white walls needed to be thicker.
Okay. The little things.
Really. And then he didn't like the hubcaps. And so we got new hubcaps.
Okay.
And then the bumpers. Again, this was all just cosmetic. Nothing needed,
So nothing too major. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I didn't know, so when you have an antique car, you can get antique plates. But there are so many rules with antique plates. You can only drive it once a week. You can't have anyone in the car with you. You can drive it like not in dark, so it has to be like between dawn and dusk. You can't drive it at night.
A lot of restrictions.
A lot of restrictions. So that meant we had to get it inspected to make sure it was like road quality. So that was kind of scary. We were like, oh, what else? Because it's original engine, know, and so we were like, but it did pass inspection. Just needed new mufflers. Has 2 of them. So we just got that and then it passed. Yeah. So now we can drive it whenever.
Nice. Oh, that's perfect. I mean, that's huge because if you can only drive it once a week or after certain hours, like what's the point,
Right.
At that point, that's you just put it in a garage and it's like a showpiece for your friends when they come over. So how did the name Rosie come about?
I think mostly because it's red. And I'm selling flowers. But it's funny because my mother-in-law, Pat's mom's name is Rose. and everyone calls her Rose. But my father-in-law, he's since passed also, but he always called her Rosie, like as a name.
That's awesome.
And I was like, well, we're not really naming after my mother-in-law, but like, would she be offended if we called it that? And that's her name with her husband. You know what I mean? Like we just,
right.
So we did ask for permission before taking it fully, that her name's Rosie. So yeah, it's mostly because she's red, and red roses. So,
it's perfect.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah. So now what are all the services you offer?
With the truck, we do what I call pop-ups. So I'll go to local businesses and stand, park out front usually and sell flowers. People can come and buy basically stems of flowers. So you can spend $5 and get, 2 or 3 stems, or you can spend $50 and get a huge bouquet to take home to, as a gift or to put on your own table. That's what I pretty much do with the truck. And last year I did 70 pop-ups.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So did over like 700 miles on Rosie on just the pop-ups. Yeah. People really like that. I think the businesses that I go to really like it because it is a showstopper. I mean, people will stop just because of the truck.
They're curious.
Because the truck's pretty, but also, I mean, it's a truck selling flowers. Like, cool.
Yeah.
That's what I do with her, basically. I do take her to some workshops also. So I do workshops where, again, people can buy a ticket to... I basically teach them how to make a flower arrangement. Oh, okay. And then they can come out to the truck and pick whatever flowers they want and,
make it beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And use my tips that I gave them to make that. I also do like wreath workshops in the winter time, but that's not with the truck. She's not great with heat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a little cold.
It's a little cold.
It's a little cold.
Yeah. And obviously the flowers in the back of the truck doesn't work.
Doesn't go too well.
No, in this winter time. So.
Well, one thing I wanted to hit on, because I saw on your social media recently you'd posted about proper flower care, and I didn't know this, but in the house you want to keep your flowers in a cool area and keep them out of direct sunlight, which I always thought you wanted your flowers in. Again, this is just me not knowing, but is that, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Like okay, so let's say it's Valentine's Day or your wife's birthday or anniversary, and you're a guy, you're like, okay, I want to get her flowers, and she'll appreciate it, this and that, but it seems like sometimes they just die so quickly. So how can you get them to live longer?
Right. Well, I pride myself on having very fresh flowers. So I have a high turnover rate, I think, because, I do these events every weekend. But then also, I'm also a florist outside of the flower truck pop-up. So I have a website people can go on and order flowers, or a lot of people just message me on Facebook or send me an email like, hey, or call me. And they'll be like, do you do funerals? Do you do weddings? Do you, I've done it all. So I pride myself on the flowers being super fresh. So that's one thing, because flowers aren't cheap. I want people to really be able to enjoy them for a long time. But part of that is, yes, you need to take care of them. So when they come to me, I put them basically in a sleeve. And then I always tell them, cut the edges again when you get home, because the air kind of seals up the bottom. Okay. And so you want to cut them before you put them back into water so that they can continue to suck up the water. And I also always include flower food on the back of the paper, and you want that in your water. And it just helps, again, they'll last long. But yeah, once you have it at home, you don't want them in direct sunlight. They grow well in direct sunlight, but they don't.
Once they're cut.
Yes, once they're cut, you don't want them to continue to mature fast, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And it's interesting because different flowers, like a tulip, for instance, it will always search for the light. So it will sometimes stretch towards the light. And then when it's bright, the tulip will open real big. And then at nighttime, it'll close again. So tulips are always changing.
I didn't know that.
Whereas a rose doesn't open and close again. And it doesn't stretch for the light, just stays how it is. So yes, you want to keep your water clean. You want to keep leaves out of the water because that can create bacteria. Okay. And then you don't want them hot either. So don't put them in front of a heat vent. Yeah. An air conditioning vent's okay because it's cool, but still the wind, the air movement isn't always great good for either. 'Em. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Never knew that. Never knew. I just thought, okay, it's cut. Throw them in some water and you're good to go. Yeah. But so between the food, that's the little nutrient package you give with all your flowers.
Right.
Keep them in a cool room and away from any kind of vents. Okay. Or airflow. All right. Learning something new. That's awesome. These events that you do and the flowers. So it all started in your backyard. you just planting some sunflower seeds, getting mad at some squirrels. I mean, that's like the origin story here.
Right.
Now it sounds like you've grown to, you still grow some in your greenhouse, but you get some imported in from other local.
I do.
Other local.
Well, during the
greenhouses?
summertime, there are other flower farmers, we're called, people who...
Flower farmers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I started, was, farming my own flowers. But it's, again, just in my backyard in downtown. I mean, it's not like I have a lot of land. And I do, my tulips are coming up, and I planted 1,200 tulip bulbs. And so, I'll be selling those tulips, but that won't last me all but a couple of weeks. And then I plant my own sunflowers. I've learned how to keep the squirrels away. And then
a BB gun?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Other things I grow in my tiny backyard. But the other things, I have become friends with other flower farmers. So there's one here in Lebanon that I'll text her like, hey, what do you have a lot of this week? She is great. She has great things. They're nice long stems, and she gives me a good deal, and I sell. So I try to support other local when I can.
Yeah.
But Pennsylvania, there's nothing growing in the wintertime. So I do also wholesale. And there's a wholesaler down in York. So I'll go online and buy, and then they deliver overnight. And I've become friends with the guy who delivers overnight, and he'll text me, I'll be there around whatever time. And sometimes it's 9:00 at night, and I'm still awake, and I'll put them in my cooler. Or like last week, he texted and said, you're my last stop. I won't be there till 4 a.m. And so I said, I was like, just put them on the porch, and I'll get them when I get up at 6,
Makes sense.
But again, if it's really, really cold, they can't freeze. If it's, he'll text me, be like, hey, they're here. Make sure you grab them so that they're not, when they ship to me, they're not in water. So they're not like terribly finicky, but yet they kind of are. I mean, you want to make sure, I keep them in a dark room and a cooler, basically. Well, it is a cooler. But it's, dark and cold, so that when people get it, it's lasts long for them and they can enjoy it. Yeah. So you want to make sure that, I strip off the leaves, and I make sure that I'm doing what I need to do on my end, so other people can enjoy them longer.
What would you say separates you from other florists? Like, comes to my mind is, Roy's Flower Shop. They've been in Lebanon for years. They're a larger corporation, family owned. But yet, sounds like it's more of a niche what you're doing. Like, what would you say separates you from some of the others out there? I mean, Rosie, for one. Let's just say, get that out there.
I never make the same thing twice, which is good and bad. I feel like it's good because, not... Like when you go on to 1-800-Flowers or Royers or wherever, you're like, oh, my mother-in-law would really love that. That's yellow and purple, and I'm going to click the button and send it to her. You know what she's getting.
Cookie cutter.
Exactly. But people... They don't know what they're getting when they order from me. Now, I'm very active on social media, and I post a lot of my things. And so I think people have gotten like my style. Okay. And so they appreciate they know that I'm going to do something nice for them, but it's not necessarily like they don't know what they're getting. I don't know what they're getting until I open my cooler and I'm like, oh, this, I'll do this, this, and this. Now for Valentine's Day was a little different. I did do, obviously the 12 dozen roses. You can't really change that up a whole lot.
Traditional, yeah.
Right. But, I did a lot of mixed arrangement too for Valentine's Day. And again, every single one was different. And I did 60 of them is what I counted. That wasn't including like the roses. And then we also just did like wrapped things without being in a vase. So 60 different designs that came out of my head, that I put in.
So this is a creative outlet for you also.
Oh, most definitely.
Huge creative outlet. Mm-hmm. And is this a full-time job? Like when you say you made 60, is it just you, or is your husband, like who helps?
It has become more of a full-time job, although I do have a full-time job on outside of Rosie and the florist part of it. So yeah, I'm busy. There's a lot of late nights and there's a lot of early mornings. And when I deliver, I always have to say, is it okay if I deliver after 5? Because I work, So for Valentine's Day, my mom helped. So years ago, she owned a flower shop with her sister. And so she knows about flowers. And actually, her and I did my wedding flowers. Now, they were fake, but, so we know about design. We're both very kind of artsy and crafty.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So she came over and helped for Valentine's Day. And I took off from my real job.
Makes sense.
Valentine's Day was a Tuesday. I took off Monday and Tuesday from my real job so that I had the time to deliver and to, help and, design and all that stuff. But yes, and then I'm really busy in prom and homecoming also because of, all the corsages and boutonnieres and stuff.
Right.
And last year, my mom, last October, she came over and helped again with all the boutonnieres and corsages and stuff. So yes, I do have help with that, but not like everyday help. My husband helps like build me things. Like he just built my walk-in cooler. It just got finished Monday. So that's neat. We got to, he's super handy, which is obviously he built the greenhouse.
Shout out to Patrick.
Yeah, right.
Shout out to Patrick coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's amazing. And occasionally, like if I'm up till like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, he'll come out and help me like prep the flowers. Cause there's a lot that goes into when they come to me.
Yeah.
I have to, take off the dead leaves and, put them in water and cut all the edges again, just like I tell people to do.
Right.
When I have 13 boxes of flowers, that's a lot of cutting. Occasionally he helps, but most of it is me. And honestly, I love it. I put on my Pandora and I, just, listen to music, and sometimes I sing out loud and no one wants to hear that. So I'm fine with being alone.
Yeah. And so like, what would you say motivates you to do this?
As far as the flower part goes, I think my favorite part of the florist aspect is delivering the flowers to people and seeing the surprise and the joy that they have when they get a delivery. That's my favorite, So basically, flowers just bring people happiness. Whether you're buying them for yourself or you're buying them for a gift, when people are walking around the truck, oh, my mom used to grow this in her yard, or
Memories.
my grandmother had this, or, oh, my mom loves purple, I'm going to buy her it's never negative.
Right.
It's just positive. And every weekend when I'm done doing my pop-ups, I'm like, wow, that was fun. It was you see and you deliver joy, and we need more of that.
Oh,
we need
for
more
sure.
joy.
For sure.
So yes, I'm enjoying that part immensely.
That's so rewarding. You're bringing smiles to people, really, is what
Right.
you're doing. You brought 2 items, and then, of course, Rosie's out front, which we'll get some pictures of. What did you bring? Can you tell us a little bit about the items?
I brought a rose. I don't want to say roses are my favorite, but it was a flower that I know would last really well outside of water.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it. So it's a nice, colorful rose. And then I brought a greenhouse that actually it's a Christmas ornament or a Christmas thing. It lights up. It's a greenhouse for, that's for Christmas. And obviously, that's how it all started for me. This actually was on sale at Walmart like last year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I've got to have it. Now, it doesn't really look anything like my greenhouse.
I was gonna ask.
This is green and mine's white. But, it has a Christmas tree in it. And again, that's just kind of feel like how it all started, with the Christmas and just kind of took off. And then I don't know if I mentioned this with Rosie, we decorate her for Christmas also. And I rented her out this year for photos. So we parked it like at a local farms, had Christmas trees in it. I went to desserts, etc.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they had a Santa Claus, and we put Santa in the back, and the kids could come and,
that's great.
and take pictures with Santa in the truck. So yeah, anything that has to do with Christmas, I'm all about that also.
So the passion of Christmas mixed with some squirrels attacking the sunflowers,
and now I have a truck. I
have a truck that you got from New York. Right. It sounds like Patrick might have to do some painting maybe if we want to get that green feel, but wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's why I tell people it just happened by accident, and COVID did a lot of bad things, but for this, I'm like, well, it was
perfect
a
time to
good
try
thing,
something new. Yeah, and that's what you did.
Right.
And so social medias, like I think you're taking off. I think you have quite a lot of traction, which is great.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't do a lot on Instagram. I don't have a lot of followers. I don't get a lot of traction. And I don't know why. So Instagram is like, I go on. I've tried the TikTok thing.
Did you? Oh my gosh, I have to look them up.
I'm too old.
Oh, come on,
I don't know
it'll be
anything.
fun time.
Like, whole adding music and making I'm not good. Anyway, but I'm there and I try occasionally. I do a lot on Facebook. I think probably because like the people who come to me are about my age, we all kind of stay on Facebook.
Right. Your parents, maybe,
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Understood. So now what are the handles for all the listeners out there? How can they follow along? How can they place an order for some of your flowers, and how can they find out about events and things like that?
I do have a website, and I try to keep my events. I have a handle up top that says flower truck events. And then there's also a thing that says ticketed events. So like I'm doing a lot of things for Mother's Day. It's another big one that's coming up. So anyway, Palmyra-greenhouse.com is my website. And then on Instagram, it's Palmyra_greenhouse. And then Facebook is just Palmyra Greenhouse. Now there is another Palmyra Greenhouse, which I found. I know, but it's in Illinois. And it's on Palmyra Road.
Oh,
I know.
Okay.
So you do kind of have to, when you put in Palmyra Greenhouse, make sure you see the little greenhouse or picture of Rosie on there and not the one in Illinois.
Yeah, you don't, not the one in Illinois, people. It's the one with Rosie, the red.
I'm a little more fun, with the things I post.
Yeah, we keep it, keep it local.
And there is an event page on Facebook, and a lot of my events go on there also. So people can find out, I have things already scheduled. Actually, I just scheduled another one last night for the first day of spring. So hopefully it won't be too cold or windy, and we're going to be out at in Hummelstown at Cubby's Ice Cream. Okay. Yeah, with the truck for the first time this year.
Awesome. So, Jessica, before we close out, is there anything else that you'd like the listeners to know?
Because I'm not busy enough.
Yeah,
with
seriously.
2 full-time jobs. I am writing a children's book. So that kind of came up. I don't even know. It was like a dream almost. I woke up in the morning one day and I was like, I'm going to write a book about Rosie. So I found a publisher. She's local. And so she's helping me through this whole process of writing a book. So as of now, it's probably going to be called like Rosie the Flower Truck. And Friends or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's basically, I don't want to say a true story because trucks don't talk. And in my story, she does. But, it's about finding her and her being lonely and then, turning into this magical flower truck. But there's also some strength in there. So I have her
I'm excited.
Being able to, do things that other boy cars couldn't do.
Oh, all right. I like it. Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Mixing both passions in there. So,
perfect. Yeah, exactly. And this is, when will this come out? Do you have a rough year?
Well, we're hoping by Christmas.
Oh, so this year?
This year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So the story is done. Obviously there's going to be tweaking here and there. So now we're on to the illustration part.
Yeah.
And then it has to be printed and all that stuff. So we're hoping by Christmas time so that, we can get that out for these kids that have, get books for Christmas. And I'll be having a book launch party, hopefully like October, November time, open to the public and stuff. So that'll be fun.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
You'll be on my invite list.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you. I'd love to. I was just going to ask, I was going to say, you have to come back once the book is out and I'd love to see it. And then we can do another episode and dive deeper into the book. Maybe, I don't know, it might be a stretch, but maybe if Patrick wants to join us, I do have another mic, we could get his take on all this. Yeah. That could be interesting as well.
He doesn't talk a whole lot.
Doesn't he? Well,
I do the talking.
You do the talking. That's right. All right. Well, so I tried, Patrick. Maybe, the mic's always open if you want to come. Well, great. Jessica, no, thank you so much for coming in. I'm going to wrap it up. Jessica Maloy on the American Grown podcast in the Colortech Creative Solutions studios. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Great job. To see photos of today's guests and more content, just search American Grown Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review.
If you'd like to be a featured guest on the podcast, please direct message or email Austin at americangrownpod@gmail.com.